Welcome back to Inside Criminal Minds, the series dedicated to analyzing an elite FBI team. If you are new to the series, there is a link in the description down below to catch you up. This episode begins with, well, Sean Connery, take it away.
A streetwalker!
Or ladies of the night, prowling for potential Johns. Also, someone writing about the streetwalkers being filth and essentially wanting to rid the world with them when the unsub takes one of their lives, but also cutting their hair. When Reid is getting off the subway, he is approached by a kid who knows who Reid is from when the team caught the Mill Creek killer. This is an amazing attention to detail, considering the last arrest was covered up by a robbery at a mall. Also, this kid went to a seminar ran by Reid, which is a bit awkward, but Reid is happy to share his knowledge with the budding profiler until the kid asks very specific questions about the murder from the start of this episode, which rightfully so concerns Reid, but unfortunately the kid runs away, meaning
DC may have a serial killer and they just let him get away.
not instilling a lot of confidence of law enforcement. Also, this picture was actually drawn by Matthew Gray Gubler, the actor who plays Reid, which is pretty impressive. And Reid gets in contact with the detective, who confirms that there are bodies with this specific MO. Hotch then meets with Reid and Gideon at the morgue to discuss the Jane Doe on the table, along with another one months prior. And for some reason, not only had her hair been chopped off, there was a message carved into her stomach, the word help, meaning this could very well be that kid on the subway. The scene does an amazing job of reinforcing the dynamic between Reid and Gideon, showing Gideon's age and determination, while simultaneously showing Reid being more meek. Another facet of this unsub is attacking in the morning. Meanwhile, Morgan and Prentice interview some ladies of the night to gain a better understanding of victimology and show them the sketch, and surprisingly, they recognize him but say he's just there to watch. Prentice and Morgan warn them to be more careful. As they leave, then Hotch meets with a congresswoman who is trying to strong-arm Hotch into keeping this case quiet. And Hotch shows his strength, but is ultimately backed down in order to find the unsub unencumbered by red tape. This does just so happen to be a way to keep voters happy because of an initiative the congresswoman passed. This is interesting because it shows how fed up Hotch is with red tape to begin with, and giving us a little bit of foreshadowing to a character we will meet soon. Also, Hotch is an amazing leader simply because he wants as many people as possible to know about this unsub, despite the congresswoman's threats. As she leaves, she talks with Prentice briefly, which is surprisingly important. Then Garcia helps Reid figure out who the kid on the train is by using his profiling and Garcia's expertise as a high school student. Because,
I was 12 and I hadn't been through puberty when I was in high school.
and despite Reid's shortcomings in being a typical high schooler, they not only find the school that the kid is going to, they also find his name in a yearbook, Nathan Harris. And when the team go and find him, he is writing similar things on his computer to the ones from the beginning of the episode, when Gideon, Morgan, and Reid show up at his front door, greeted by Nathan's mother, who is oblivious as to why the FBI agents are knocking on her door, as Nathan does try to calm her down, with Morgan and Reid following Nathan to his room. Nathan shows his admiration to Reid because he was able to find him so quickly. Meanwhile, Morgan is profiling the room to get a better understanding of this kid. But when Reid looks at the computer, Nathan gets a bit protective, but Morgan effectively dispatches him. And after a brief read of the slasher fanfic, Nathan confesses to finding one of the victims, which is how he knew of the specifics of the case, and his desire to be the unsub, which either means he is the unsub or two people share the same fantasy, just one acts on it. Please let it be the second one. Nathan just seems to be more confused than anything else, rather than being a killer. At the interrogation room, Reid and Morgan question Nathan in a good cop, bad cop routine that's just different enough to be enjoyable. Meanwhile, Nathan's mom meets with Gideon to discuss Nathan and his tendency for being a bit odd. I also like how, as Gideon is analyzing her, she's watching what she says or how she says it to protect her child, which is very sweet. Misguided, but sweet. During Nathan's interrogation, he reveals his desire to unalive women of the night and that he was stalking Reid to talk to him and hopefully make sense of what he is. As the meeting ends, Gideon, Morgan, and Reid convince the mom to allow Nathan to have a psych eval, which I think is needed. Morgan does have his doubts about the fact that Nathan could be the unsub, but also the inverse. Meanwhile, using an impressive shot of the camera zooming into Nathan's eye, we get to see his fantasy played out as he picks up a girl and he unalives her by stabbing her. Yeah, I'm glad this kid's getting a psych eval. Before Nathan leaves, he gets Reid to promise to be truthful about the results. And Garcia's there to be the shoulder for Reid and gives pretty good advice. However, Reid laments on Nathan's predicament due to the fact that it is very similar to his mother's disease.
It's like with my mom, I used to think that if I could just understand absolutely everything there is to know about schizophrenia, then I'd somehow be able to fix it.
Which is interesting because Garcia was the first to learn about Reid's mom having schizophrenia, and also the one that Reid seems to confide in about how he feels. This is interrupted by Hotch calling a meeting in case Nathan is not the unsub, showing both the first victim and the most recent victim. During this meeting, Prentice brings up Nathan and is promptly shut down by Hotch because Nathan is in custody, no need to worry over something that is already handled. But in this scene, we see Hotch get a tad more aggressive than he typically is, showing how he is dealing with the potential leak in his team. Gideon then brings the team back on track, and they begin to look further into the victims. After this discussion, JJ implores to alert the media, to which Hotch again stops this from happening. In the morning, one of the ladies, Prentice and Morgan, interviewed finds one of her friends cut up in an alleyway with the word failure carved into her stomach. The bright side is that it's not Nathan because he was in police custody last night. This does confirm that we have two people that share the same fantasy. As the team discuss the latest unaliving, Hotch mentions the congresswoman and Prentice asks about their meeting, which is met with hostility from Hotch. Again, a lot more aggressive than he typically is. But I am glad that Reid is able to convince the team to keep going with the psych eval, even after Nathan has effectively been cleared from the accusations. In the meantime, Gideon is talking with Nathan to get a better understanding of who he is and how he is going to behave. They even have a psychologist there to ensure Nathan's safety, and that's when he reveals he is showing signs of psychopathic behaviors.
In technical terminology, he's a loon.
Bringing up him unaliving a bird and how he feels better because of it. Then Nathan explains how when he saw a naked dead body, he felt excited and focuses on the death part more and more, which shows his fractured psyche, leading into his desires to unalive streetwalkers, which is extremely troubling not only to Gideon but to Nathan as well, showing even the smallest amount of control. After the meeting with Gideon, Nathan's mom is concerned and asks to speak with Gideon one-on-one. This is when he explains everything, and even though Gideon fought hard for Nathan to be hospitalized because
If an alcoholic cannot control his impulses, ma'am, he drinks. You need to consider what happens with someone fighting psychotic urges.
However, despite this, she will not budge on her son. Afterwards, Hotch meets with Prentice about the congresswoman, Hotch being way more aggressive than he should be, but also brings up some really good points. and Prentice is able to convince Hotchner that she belongs on the team, even after the fact that she joined as Elle was being let go, which after a little bit, he is able to understand where she's coming from, and she is able to go back to work to save women's lives. Reid talks with Gideon about the eval, and unfortunately,
Not a question of whether he ends up killing someone. It's when.
in turn concerning Reid. Meanwhile, Nathan's mom reveals that Nathan is missing. Next, Reid and Morgan comb the streets looking for him, and Reid reveals to Morgan why Nathan is so important to him.
He knows that I understand him.
Of course you do. You're a profiler.
It's more than that.
Oh.
I know what it's like to be afraid of your own mind.
They also talk about Hotch's mood briefly until they get a call about another victim, which is vastly different from the other victim's MO, which could point to Nathan as the number one suspect. Luckily or unluckily, they find Nathan, but due to nobody knowing where he was at the time of the murder, they have to take Nathan in. But before that happens, he laments that he can only save lives by being unalive himself. Tiny bit of foreshadowing. At HQ, Gideon is able to clear the suspicions of Nathan being the unsub, and due to the last victim, they determine the person must work in or around the same groups as the Congresswoman. And Prentice has a description of the unsub, or potentially the unsub, from when she was interviewing the ladies of the night. So Hotch instructs her to bring in the witnesses as he preps a press conference in order to catch the Congresswoman's attention, which is very smart on Hotchner's end, but also kind of stupid. However, it does work, and the Congresswoman storms into the BAU to be met by the same women who might actually know who the unsub is. And thanks to Reid and his list and the description, they are able to narrow it down to be one person, Ronald Weems, who is also writing about unaliving streetwalkers. Then he goes to hunt as the team meet with his wife, and Gideon does a good job of using profiling to predict Ronald's actions in the past, and is able to get the wife to acquiesce to the search, which leads them to a treasure trove of evidence. However, he is on the prowl while this is happening. This forces the team to hit the streets looking for him when he finds his prey, but unfortunately for him, one of the ladies recognized him and literally blows the whistle on him. This is when the team rush in, and even one of the ladies gets her revenge.
She maced me! Yeah, she did.
That's when Nathan meets back up with Reid and wants to talk to the unsub, but Reid doesn't allow this, and also reassures Nathan that there is way more to him than what the unsub is.
Besides, the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. We've all got both light and dark inside of us. What matters is the part we choose to act on. That's who we really are.
During this meeting, Nathan does tell Reid that he is going to a hospital and that this is going to be his last night in the populace. So to blow off some steam, he hires a lady of a night, while Garcia forces Reid to blow off some steam. At the hotel, the lady is trying to help Nathan until he shows his ugly side and pulls a knife. Then Reid gets a call and forces Garcia to drive to the hotel room where the lady is scared, and Reid jumps in to save Nathan's life using makeshift tourniquets and applying pressure until the ambulance arrives. And it is beautiful that Reid cares about Nathan so much that it takes a few times for the ambulance worker to really get into Reid's head that he needs to stop doing what he's doing, which he does eventually, and fortunately they are able to save his life. To end the episode with one of the most powerful scenes, Gideon explaining to Reid he did the right thing by saving Nathan, but Reid is torn between doing the right thing and potentially unaliving more people because of what he did. This does show Gideon's experience because he is able to tell Reid that even though you saved him, if he does go on to become an unsub, that your job is to catch him. This episode was an amazing episode for Reid's character, and subsequently Gideon's relationship with him. It really showed a deeper side of Reid, especially for caring for someone because of the similarities to him. This happens again in a later episode, but way more violent. And the fact that he almost saw a kid die in front of him must take a toll on him some way. We also learn how tight of a ship Hotch likes to run, and also how he deals with bureaucracy, and how much he really hates red tape. And to further the point, how far he's willing to go for the safety and security of his team. Prentice also did a good job of ensuring Hotch that she deserves to be on this team, which is great, that she can articulate in this way. This is one of those episodes that I could watch at any time, because the characters and the actors put on such a tour de force. And speaking of actors, Anton Yelchin, who plays Nathan, tragically lost his life in 2016 at the age of 27. Any loss of life is heartbreaking. However, it's worse when you see somebody who has so many years left in him, not just in this project, but in all of the other movies and TV shows that he's been in. He really does a good job of playing who he needs to play. He was an amazing actor who will very well be missed. Thank you for watching. If you're curious onto what happens when a spy gets fired, check out Burned Notice. Link in the description. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.